afternoons is I like to get up in the mountains and just be out in nature and feel God's presence in that way. Or sometimes I'll go to somebody's house. A while back, I took a bunch of our young people and we went and visited a guy who is blind, and he's probably in his 60s or something, and he lives in a house with his mom who's a little past 90, and she can't talk. And their life's kind of gray. It's kind of grim. And we went over there and we sang some songs and got the kids to tell some stories and experiences and stuff. And I think we experienced Jesus like we might have experienced him if we'd have been one of the disciples hanging out with him when Jesus was going into homes where there was, sadness and not too much hope. So I think there's a lot of things that are good Sabbath things. There's maybe Sabbath games, there's Sabbath lessons, I love music, Sabbath's a good day for music and a lot of stuff. Okay. But a time to block out whatever the worries and works are that we have for the week. If I'm a student in school, my work is to study, geometry or physics or something like that. So Sabbath experience would mean leave the studies alone. Give your mind a break.
Couldn't that be on any day of the week? As if I understand you correctly, like the Sabbath is a time of rest and draw close to God, and could not that be any day of the week? I think Romans talks about one day one man honors and the other man doesn't honor, but we're still honoring God regardless of what day of the week. Just a thought. And my other thought is it not like it's in the 10 Commandments, right? It's a command of God. And I think there's like 613 shavahs of commandments, and then the Sabbath itself is not mentioned in the New Testament. It's all the other ones are like, don't commit adultery, honor thy mother and father, all those kind of things. They're all there with the exception of the Sabbath in the New Testament. So how does that work? I don't understand. I understand it's, if what I do understand, you're taking this day called the Sabbath, which is a Jewish covenant with the God of Israel, and making it a day where I can kind of, do spiritual things, right? And those are all good things. They're all blessed things. But I could do that on a Monday, and I could do that on a Tuesday, and it would be just as holy as as the Sabbath. So I guess my question is, where is the New Testament application to Sabbath in regards to New Testament time?
Good question, and that's a question that has gone on in the religious community for decades.
Yeah.
For hundreds of years, actually.
Yeah.
And I totally agree that we can study, in a couple of months I'm going to go with a pastor's retreat, and we're going to go up in the mountains, and we start at noon on Sunday and we're going to be done at noon on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be a spiritual retreat. We're going to have, prayer times and I don't know what all, devotional speakers.
Sure.
And I'm sure that we will be blessed.
Absolutely.
We will be filled with that time. And, we have a prayer meeting here Wednesday night. We've got another meeting Friday night.
I guess that idea, I'm thinking of, Peter and what was going on where I think it's in the book of Galatians, where, some Jewish people show up and he's with the Gentiles and he's living like a Gentile, and the Jews come in, right? And he withdraws, and I think he withdraws even as Barnabas withdraws. And, what I want to say about that, the Jewish people couldn't keep the yoke of the law, the Torah. And they expounded on it so much it became the Talmud, and it became the Mishnah, and it became on and on and on. So, isn't that law? I mean, I know we're talking about the Sabbath. The Sabbath is also part of the whole law, special day, commandments, first commandment, second commandment, third commandment, the Decalogue. It's called the Decalogue. But there's like 600 and some odd laws, and they couldn't keep them. So I think like, when Paul addresses Peter and says, he rebukes him, for living in a way that they couldn't keep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, just trying to understand it.
So is the Sabbath keeping, is that more like of a tradition of keeping like holiness, like a holiness type of tradition for you guys? Because I know that,
some traditions are good.
Yeah.
Even Christian traditions are good. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And cause I know that some churches, they do it some worship on Wednesday and Thursday and then some on Sunday. And I know the calendar kind of got messed up, and the calendar that we have right now isn't the right timekeeping. I know that. So,
you have Jewish calendar, Roman calendar.
Yeah. And I know that in the New Testament that, some of the believers were coming together and were praying. And, I don't know if they were saying the first day of the week. I wasn't sure if they were, I don't know if it was a certain
Book of Acts.
Yeah.
They met on the first day of the week, but it's in reference to Sunday.
Yeah.
And again, each day is holy to the Lord.
And that's what I was meaning about the calendar. We were talking with the Coptics, how they're saying that their calendar is different than ours. That
it's like a Greek calendar.
Yeah.
Too.
If you would see, like, my birthday is going to land on a completely different day next year. There's something off with this calendar that we have. It's not the right timekeeping. So I don't know if that's if that's where you get the Saturday from, as far as or is the Saturday like a must? Is like a must when it comes to, worshiping the Lord and keeping that day?
There's a lot of questions.
Sorry.
I remember, Ross.
Wait, let me ask two more.
I heard Ross say, you ask me whatever you want.
Shall I try to answer a couple?
Sorry, Ross.
That is a lot of questions. Yeah.
First of all, about the calendars being different. The Jewish people have been pretty fastidious about keeping track of time. And I think we could check with the Jews and find that the 7-day cycle has been kept accurate since before the time of Christ. So I think when we look at the 7-day cycles that are out there now, we're looking at the same ones that were in use in Palestine at the time that Christ emerged. And when you say the Sabbath isn't in the New Testament, I think what you're saying is we don't find another time where the Sabbath commandment is reiterated as a separate commandment by itself in the New Testament. That doesn't mean the Sabbath isn't in the New Testament. Luke, early in his gospel, tells us that Jesus, as his custom was, went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day, and he was the guest and he was the speaker that day. It was his custom to keep Sabbath. Paul's custom was to keep Sabbath. And of course the question that comes out of that was, were they just doing it because the Jews were doing it and they didn't want to upset the boat? Or were they doing it because there was a reason that they should keeping Sabbath? To help answer that question, I think it's helpful to look back to the origins of Sabbath. There are two views of when Sabbath originated. Many times, I think people who study the Bible look at Exodus and say, oh, the commandment to keep the seventh day of the week originated at Sinai. My reading is that Sabbath originated at creation. The seventh day, God rested, and it says He made it holy. He blessed it, He rested, and He sanctified it or made it holy. Three things that distinguish that day from the rest of the week. Now, God certainly didn't need a rest because of exhaustion at the end of creation week. He rested for a reason. He stopped His work for a reason.
It was finished.
He was finished, and that was the time when He devoted His attention to His new creation, Adam and Eve. and they had communion. So the rest created the environment in which the relationship and the spiritual connection occurred. So God rested. He sanctified it, meaning he made it holy. The seventh day was holy, beginning at creation. And then it says he blessed it. I've been interested with that word blessed. Oftentimes I hear about a kid getting a blessing, and I think of, patting a little boy on his head. Good job, Freddie. You hit the home run today. Bless you, my boy. Meaning, I approve of you, good boy. But in Scripture, the word blessing is a much more powerful word. Blessing is to give an empowerment to something. If you bless a field, the crops in that field are more productive than the field that wasn't blessed. When you bless your new creation and tell them be fruitful and multiply, you're giving the lions and the tigers and the fish and the birds the potential to do what they were designed to do. So blessing is a gift, an energy, a source, a power, a strength. And in all of Scripture, there's only one day where we find that the day receives a special empowering or blessing or strength. And so it's kind of based on that origin of Sabbath and the meaning of Sabbath that as a Sabbath keeper, I find value in continuing to enter into the Sabbath rest that God established. I can tell you my own experience with Sabbath. Sabbath for a pastor is a working day. It's my perhaps most stressful or difficult day of the week. I'm prepping for message. Maybe there's arrangements for the program that need to be made. And I start to enter the Sabbath, and my stress level is usually up. And I get into Sabbath, and I'm trying to transition in my mind the stuff from the week. We had these rains here recently. The roof leaked. Okay, I got to call the roofer, get him back out here and patch up the roof. We need to get the Wi-Fi set up. We need to do that. Right now I'm working on planning a free health clinic we're doing. There's a lot of logistics with that. So there's all this, part of my work that goes on during the week. When I come to Sabbath, I go, okay, this is a day where we're trying to rest from the responsibilities, the duties, the work of the week, and enter into the spiritual realm. So I find a reluctance in my own spirit to leave that stuff behind because they're unfinished tasks that I need to do. And so there's something in me that's saying, but remember this, think about this, what are you going to do about that? But I come into Sabbath, we have our gathering Friday night, we have our services Sabbath morning, we have our fellowship time, we have whatever afternoon ministry or outreach or whatever. And the part of me that was reluctant to enter into the Sabbath experience on Friday night has transitioned over that 24-hour period. And by the time I'm into the Sabbath, I'm loving this. It's like, yeah, I can forget that stuff. I want it out of my head for a while. And by the time sundown comes Saturday night, I'm wishing Sabbath would be lasting a little bit longer.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, I was wishing it was going to be hanging on because this felt better than the stuff I got to get back to now. So the Sabbath blessing is a transforming, a refreshing, a renewing experience for me. And I'm re-energized, kind of restarted. And my interpretation of that is that it has to do with the fulfillment of God's promise way back at creation, that He has included in Sabbath time a juice, an energy, something that isn't available on other days. Not to say that I can't connect with Jesus on other days, because my job is to connect with Him every day, to serve Him every day. But I'm understanding that it was His design that there was a difference and a specialness And the specialness of Sabbath is marked by